So I grew up in India. Finished my high school there and I came here. But remember about 10 years ago, Tom Friedman wrote a book, The World is Flat? Well, for those people who are affluent, for rich, the world has been flat a lot longer, right? So I grew up in India in a very privileged family, a well-off family, and I might as well have grown up in the US, right? Because I read the same books, I watched the same TV. So when I came here, either in language or in cultural transitions, there wasn't much for me. When I went to college, it was a straight fit in. But there was a big journey for me, and that was really the journey that I'm very passionate about sharing with young people, boys and girls, young men and young women. And it's this journey, right? So Tariq knows it. We first met at the 840 Dixwell Avenue location with Imam Zaid Shakir, and we spent our 20s sitting at the feet of a lot of our shuyukh. And we were told that, at some point, for those of you who are 12, 13, 14, you'll get to 16, 17, 18, and you'll start to ask yourself a lot of questions, which you should allow yourself a lot of freedom to ask. Which is, who am I? What am I? Who made me? Really, God? 5 times prayer? Really? Should women be at the back of the mosque dressed this way or that way? Does God really care? And I will tell you, we are blessed because in our faith, that inquiry is not only allowed, it's encouraged. Okay? So the question for me was, and it's the how of entrepreneurship and business. For me, it's the story that appeals to me every day. When I say I was privileged, I was born into a family that was well off. Perhaps more than money, the gratitude that I owe that family, and I don't mean just my blood family, my extended family, was the tradition of ideas in that family that they gave me. And this is a story that I learned in my family. The story is that 1,000 years ago, of a young man, when men used to come of a certain age, you studied in your madrasa. Think of a traditional Muslim society. And you came of a certain age and you would go into the world to seek your fortune, whether it was tijara or business you would do, whether you would go seek advanced knowledge at the feet of a different scholar someplace far away, right? So, there are a ton of stories you can read, like mothers would sew ashrafis or gold coins into the sleeve band of their sons so that they would travel and they wouldn't be robbed. That was an era, and there's a lot of truth to that. So the story is set in that this young man, Ahmed, say reaches a certain age, say 18, our legal age, and the family throws him a big party, and he was going to go for a year to make his name in the world and then come back, or to figure out what he would do. Seek his rizq, so to speak, so that he would come back, he would have a way of making a living, and then he'd be married, etc. So the family throws him a big feast. They say salams to him. He leaves. Well, the following day, his grandfather is at the Asr prayer, and guess who's back at the masjid? Ahmed is still there. So his grandfather looks at him and says, Ahmed, you! I thought you left yesterday. And Ahmed says, oh, Grandpa, I did. He says, why are you back? He says, Grandpa, my iman was not strong. And then Allah taught me a lesson, and I'm back with a firm iman. So Grandpa says, okay, do tell. He says, I travel half a day's journey from here at such and such village, and I stopped to rest at such and such mosque because it started to rain really hard. Grandpa says, yeah, I know the masjid, I know what you're talking about. He says, Grandpa, I was inside the masjid, and this rain's coming down, it was storming. And lo and behold, in front of me, Allah plays out the scene which completes my iman in a way of understanding the world. Grandpa says, what happened? He said, Grandpa, there was a bird that had made a nest on the tree, and there was a little chick in the nest, and the wind was so harsh that the nest stumbled over onto the floor, onto the ground, and this chick falls off the nest, and it's thundering and lightning, and I see this very frightened little chick, and I'm standing there, and I said, subhanallah, the world's such a harsh place. If you're weak, you can die. He says, I'm standing there, and as the rain slows down, guess what happens? Grandpa says, what happened? He says, Mama bird comes flying out of nowhere. Looks up on the tree, doesn't find the nest, comes down, sees the little chick on the ground, shivering, afraid, shivering because it's cold. And Mama sits down and she covers herself, spreads the wings and covers this little chick under its care. And the little baby chick opens its mouth, and Mama Mama bird drops insects into its open beak. Grandpa says, wow, that's a very moving scene to witness, grandson. Ahmed, well, what about life's lesson? He says, Grandpa, don't you see? Someone told me that your rizq comes to you, that Allah brings your rizq to you. And here I am, of little faith, seeking to go 100 miles to look for my rizq. If my rizq is written for me, it'll come to me. Everyone follow the story? What do you owe yourself? What should you be doing? Where does God come in? Because look, in Surah Taha, it says, وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا لَا نَسْأَلُكَ رِزْقًا نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكَ. It's plain and clear. Now, there are 100 ways to interpret the verse, but it says, I don't ask you for rizq, I'll give you the rizq. وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ. Allah says, establish salah. Be firm in it, because I'm asking you not, your livelihood I'll give you. We all hear it, every child comes with its own rizq. So little Ahmed at 18 is connecting those dots for his grandpa. He says, Grandpa, why do we do this to ourselves? It'll come to us. And Grandpa's got the wisdom of the ages. And he says, son, I'm so proud that you would think about that incident the way you did. He said, but I do have to ask you a question. He says, Allah laid out for you in front of the stage, if this is that the real world is, a scene of two birds. One was the one in need, and the other one was not only taking care of its own needs, but providing for others. Tell me why, Ahmed, did you choose the part of the bird whose needs are met by someone else, and not the part of the bird that meets its own needs and provides for someone else? And Ahmed got all hot and flushed and left home again the next day. Are you all with me? Yeah. Now, in the next 4 or 5 years, if you're young, you will be asked, how hard do you have to work for yourself? Do you really have to get up and really bust your behind? Do you really have to go all the way? The Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith that's cited or attributed, is seeking knowledge, go to Iran. Some of us are in China, pardon me. And for some of us are in the China of the world today, really, right? The eminent civilization, that's why we came here, seeking knowledge. This is our faith. In the world, for you, there will always be two choices. And our deen says, the hand that gives is better than the hand that receives. We are a faith, we're a community of leaders. We've got countries where people need us. It's not going to be enough for you to get a job to feed you and your children and your spouse. We're going to have to earn for the entire community. And that means after you leave today, fasten your belts a little tighter, because you're going to have to earn for it. If each of us earn for 1,000 people every month, even then our community will be in need. And that is what our community needs today. So I hope some of you, if not all of you, will leave from here today saying, I carry a big responsibility. I have to be the mama bird. Because every day you'll hear a lecture that'll make you go like, well, which is my journey? Take the harder road. Every day you'll have goals here and a goal there. Take the goal there. If you don't aim high, you will be ordinary. And ordinary is failure in this world. Look, you will make it big, or your children will make it big. Look, I'll tell you this. If you watch on YouTube episodes of the moon landing, right? Mission Control is talking to Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin, right? And these guys are like on the way to the moon. And somebody from NASA jokes. He says, hey, Neil, we want to know which one of you is driving. You guys with me? Which of you is driving? And Neil Armstrong jokes back. He says, I think right now, most of the driving is being done by Sir Isaac Newton. Because 400 years ago, Isaac Newton wrote the very equations that controlled how we went to the moon. Isaac Newton and Galileo Galilei, they basically, figured out the laws of planetary motion. I mean, Galilei made it. Galileo says, really, he benefited a lot from the observations of a man named Tycho Brahe, Tychobrahe, Danish astronomer. He lost his eyesight towards the latter part of his life, but he stayed up nights just looking at the sky, drawing the most detailed maps in what is called the dark ages of the Western civilization. There was not much going on. But this guy was out there. Now, he was Danish, which means most nights were very cold, mind you. And he was out there. I don't even know what the circumstances were. To revive a community that has gone a little slow, let's just say, or it's struggling, predominant share of refugees in the world are ours, we will need more Tycho Brahes. We will have to be out there. We'll be drawing very rudimentary maps of the world. What I'm doing relative to a software business is nothing compared to what, say, Apple is doing or what Microsoft is doing. But we have to go out there, 1,000 of us, And do it every day with all the pain that may come with it. Because I'll tell you what, you get a Tycho Brahe, you'll get a Galileo. You get a Galileo, there'll be a Newton. You get a Newton and you'll go to the moon, brothers and sisters. We'll go to the moon, inshallah, and back. But this has to start here. This is what we've been given today. We have to do big. For those of us who are from India, Pakistan, look, the British East India Company, they left that small island of England. They rounded the Cape of Good Hope. There was no Suez Canal. All the way to trade. They would trade. They would fill ships up. And that was part of our legacy. I mean, we know, how did the Prophet meet Khadija? I mean, there were caravans that used to go to Syria. 1,500 years ago, they used to think big. So, if you're going to do nothing, open something, start something. If you're going to start something that was this big, open big. Get a $600 million franchise, for God's sake. And it'll all have to start with thinking that I'm going to be the mama bird, not the chick bird. The one that's going to protect and provide, not the one that's going to be afraid and shivering. Each of us has it in us. That's been my cultural transition. That's been the piece where I sat like you and I said, which way? I want the bigger car, not because I can show it. You remember, Abu Bakr gave everything he had as they were going for the ghazwas. And he said it, so that 1,500 years later we talk about it. And he had a lot. Uthman he's known as Uthman al-Ghani. Al-Ghani means the rich one. The one who's been given a lot. This is all part, our tradition is not a monastic tradition. The brother asked, how many of you want to be rich? Our tradition is not a monastic, renounce the world tradition. Now, if you want to enjoy renouncing the world, first get it, then give it away. That is a better way in our tradition than to never seek it. And I hope some of you will go home with that, inshallah.